There are betrayals that don't need shouting, just a single note left on the kitchen counter. A family turns Thanksgiving into an escape, leaving a dying stepfather shivering in a dark, freezing house and dumping the ugliest part of it on the one person who came home expecting warmth. The most brutal part isn't the cold, it's the choice they made, knowing exactly what could happen and walking away anyway. Before we dive into today's story, let us know where you're tuning in from. It's always amazing to see where our stories travel. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next twist in this journey. Now, let's listen to him from the heart. If you'd asked me on that Monday night how I was doing, I would have said, can't complain. My project had just cleared its third QA cycle. I had leftover Thai waiting in the fridge, and all I wanted was to get home, reheat it, and pass out on my couch to some crime show rerun. It had been raining all day in Pittsburgh, one of those cold, slushy, late-autumn rains that glues your jeans to your knees and makes the city lights smear across the pavement like oil slicks. I was maybe 10 minutes from my apartment in Lawrenceville, drumming my fingers on the steering wheel, waiting for the green light at a lonely intersection. No music. Just wipers and wet silence. Then, without warning, blinding headlights from the left. A sickening crunch. My body jolted sideways, a sound like all the windows of the world shattering at once. Metal grinding. The scent of something burnt and chemical, then upside down. Spinning. Black. When I came to, I was sideways in my car. Or what was left of it. Someone was yelling outside. My vision was vibrating. I couldn't move, couldn't even breathe properly. A woman's voice, firm but kind, cut through the chaos. "Sir, stay with me. We're getting you out." The paramedics pulled me from the wreckage with what felt like invisible hands. My neck was braced, my spine immobilized. One guy muttered something I'd never forget. "You're lucky to be alive." At UPMC Mercy, everything blurred. ER, fluorescent lights, blood tests, imaging voices that never spoke directly to me. I caught the word internal bleeding, then surgery, then nothing. I woke up in recovery gasping like I'd been underwater. My ribs screamed. There was a weight across my chest like someone parked a Buick on it. My right leg was elevated and strapped. Tubes snaked from my arms. My mouth was dry. The first thing I did was whisper, "Where are my parents?" A nurse mid-40s, maybe, with calm eyes, adjusted my IV and said gently, "We called your emergency contacts. They've been notified." I blinked. "Did they say they're coming?" She hesitated just long enough for me to notice. They were reached. That's all I know. That night, in a haze of morphine and beeping monitors, I typed with shaky fingers, "Mom, Dad, I'm okay. Had to have surgery. Let me know if you're coming." I stared at the screen. Message read, "No reply. 6 hours later, still here. Still sore. Just wondering if you guys can swing by. No rush." Still nothing. By day 2, I had started counting the seconds between pain meds and the nurses changing shifts. I tried calling them voicemail. Again. Left one. "Hey, it's me. Just wanted to hear your voice, I guess." On the third morning, a young social worker introduced herself as my case manager. Her voice was rehearsed, efficient. She asked who'd be picking me up once I was discharged. Who was signing for my rehabilitation plan? Who would help me during recovery? "I'll manage," I said too quickly. "Mr. Grayson," she said, "I'm not trying to pry. But if you don't have someone, we need to look into options for assisted care." I nodded like I understood, but all I could feel was a kind of blank space inside me widening. I had always prided myself on being independent. I'd left home at 18, funded my own degree, budgeted every paycheck, built up a solid savings cushion, and even started investing years ago. Never once asked my family for anything. But this wasn't a twisted ankle or a bad cold. I'd almost died. And now I needed someone. Just someone. Still no one came. Memories flickered uninvited. My older brother Langston knocking over a vase when we were kids and Mom hugging him saying it was okay because he didn't mean to. Me breaking a plate 2 years later, her eyes narrowing, her voice clipped. "Why can't you be more careful?" Huxley Langston forgot birthdays. I never did. He coasted. I saved. But somehow, I always came second. I told myself maybe they were overwhelmed. Maybe this scared them. Maybe. Then a nurse let it slip. We contacted them again yesterday, just so you know. Which left me lying there in the still silence of the fifth night with a single question echoing louder than the heart monitor beside me. If they knew. Where the hell were they day 6? The rain had stopped. Soft gray light filtered through the narrow hospital window. I was propped up slightly now thanks to physical therapy. Every breath still ached, my legs still strapped. But my eyes were fixed on the door. I wasn't even sure what I expected anymore, a hug, an argument, an explanation. Anything. Instead, in the early afternoon, the door opened and Nadine Ketter walked in. She wasn't family, not exactly. She was an old friend of my parents, maybe 10 years older than me. Used to bring pie to church potlucks. I hadn't seen her in over a year. But she was holding a paper bag and smiling like this was a casual visit to someone who had a cold. "Oh, honey," she said, stepping in. "Look at you." I came as soon as I heard. I blinked. "You heard today?" No. I mean earlier this week. But things have been so busy." She set the bag down, sliced banana bread, some magazines, a Gatorade. "How's the food here?" she asked. "Terrible, right?" I nodded stiffly. Nadine chatted for a bit, small talk mostly. I waited for her to mention my parents. Maybe they'd sent her. Maybe they asked her to check on me because they were on the way. Then she said it, carelessly, mid-sentence. "Well, I'm sure your folks are just swamped, what with Langston's big night and all." I froze. "His what? The awards thing?" "You didn't know," she paled. "Oh, I thought I figured they would have told you." "What awards thing?" My voice was too flat. Nadine winced. "Langston got honored by the association, something with his consulting firm, big industry event. Your parents were so proud. There was a dinner, speeches, cameras. They've been planning all week. The exact week I had been lying in this bed, cut open and alone." "They didn't tell me," I said. Nadine's face softened. "I thought you knew. Your mom posted pictures on Facebook. I mean, they were all dressed up. Your dad gave a toast, I think." She left soon after. I thanked her, even smiled a little. But the second the door closed, I pulled out my phone and opened my messages. I scrolled back. Day 1, I'm awake. Day 2, it hurts but I'm okay. Day 3, would love to see you. Day 4, please come. Day 5, I really need you. Every message I had sent had been read. Every one ignored. Because while I was trying not to die, they were polishing shoes, posing for photos, clinking glasses. I typed, hands shaking now. I almost died this week. "Where were you? Heard you were at Langston's award ceremony. Congrats, I guess." Message sent. This time the reply came in under a minute. "We were going to come after the event. We didn't realize how serious it was. Don't jump to conclusions." After 5 days of silence now, they answered. Not when I was being cut open, not when I couldn't walk, but now when they'd been called out. The message burned in my hands. I stared at it and thought, when I was dying, you were silent. But the second I asked where you were, you suddenly had something to say. What story would they spin now? They responded at 1:42 a.m. after 4 days of silence, 4 days of me lying alone with tubes in my arm and bruises on my ribs. They texted like nothing had happened, like I was overreacting. "We thought you were stable. The award ceremony was a once-in-a-lifetime event. Don't turn this into drama, Hux. You know we love you." I stared at the screen, the cold hospital room lit only by the blinking IV monitor. My breath came shallow, stiffened by the ache in my chest. I typed slowly. "Greater than I didn't ask you to miss the ceremony. I asked you to stop by the hospital. Once. Or call. Once." I hesitated before hitting send, my thumb hovering. Then I added, "Greater than if Langston had been in this bed, would you have gone to the ceremony?" I watched the read notification appear. Then nothing. No reply. By morning I stopped hoping. They didn't text back that day or the next. I kept practicing standing with a walker moving from bed to chair. The nurses cheered small wins. My case manager brought rehab paperwork. I scrolled past photos someone had tagged of the award gala Langston in a tuxedo, mom and her favorite navy sheath dress, dad with a champagne glass. Beaming, sparkling, posted 3 days ago. On the 7th day, they came. I was halfway through breakfast, lukewarm oatmeal and a plastic cup of apple juice when I heard them at the door. I didn't look up until I smelled my father's cologne. Sharp, familiar, unwelcome. "Hey, bud," he said like we were running into each other at the grocery store. My mother held a bouquet of store-bought daisies, her eyes already damp. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered. "You look so thin." I didn't speak. Just stared at them, waiting for it. They sat awkwardly in the chairs by the window, commenting on the room, the weather, the city traffic. My chest tightened with each word. They asked if I needed anything, if I was getting enough protein, if I had talked to physical therapy. I finally cut through it. "Why are you really here?" Silence. My mother looked at my father. He exhaled. "It's about Langston," he said. I looked out the window. He's in some legal trouble," my mom offered, voice thin. I turned back. "What kind of trouble?" They glanced at each other again, then my dad leaned forward. "There was an investigation. Financial discrepancies at the firm. They're saying he falsified some reports, moved money through dummy accounts." "Fraud," I said flatly. "Alleged," my father said quickly. "It's complicated. But the bail is steep. We already paid the lawyer. We're trying everything we can." There it was. And now I said, "You're trying me." My mother winced. "We know you've been saving. You've always been so responsible." "Langston. He's never had your stability." "You mean he's never had consequences?" Dad shifted uncomfortably. "That's not fair." "No," I said, voice hoarse. "What's not fair is almost dying and realizing the people you listed as your emergency contacts didn't show until they needed something." My mother reached out. "It's not like that." "Yes, it is. We're a family," she pleaded. "Families help each other." I laughed. Actually laughed. "When have you ever helped me?" They said nothing. "I'm not giving you my savings." "We wouldn't ask if it wasn't urgent," my father said. "You wouldn't be here at all if it wasn't." I shot back. "I'm not a wallet with a pulse." My mother cried harder. My father stood. "You're making a mistake," he said, eyes cold. I looked him in the eye. "So are you." And with that they left. But I knew it wasn't over. I signed the discharge papers with a shaky hand. The case manager gave me a folder of rehab instructions, a list of medications, and a caution about stairs. "Try to have someone with you the first few days," she said gently, "even just to get groceries or help with the shower." I nodded, even though I'd already arranged for a friend from work to help me get home. I wasn't going to ask my parents. I didn't even tell them I was leaving today. But somehow they knew. The Uber pulled up to my apartment building in Lawrenceville just after noon. It was cold and gray, the sidewalks crusted with old salt. I swung my legs out of the back seat, bracing my crutches, every breath aching with the tension in my ribs. And then I saw them, standing in the lobby, stiff and alert like two sentinels. My father in his wool coat, arms folded, my mother clutching her purse like a prayer book. I froze. My friend glanced at me. "You okay?" I nodded barely. "Thanks," I whispered, and made my way toward the door. They were on me before I could key in. "We need to talk," my dad said. "I just got out of the hospital." "That's why we're here," my mom said. "To make things right." "No," I said. "You're here because I said no." The air in the lobby was thick. I could feel the eyes of the front desk clerk behind the counter, trying not to look, trying not to listen. "You're punishing your brother," my father snapped. "For what? Being more successful, getting more attention. That's childish." "You really think this is about jealousy?" I asked, stunned. "You said it yourself," Mom added, her voice rising. "You feel we loved him more." "I didn't say that," I whispered. "You didn't have to." She said, her eyes suddenly wild with emotion. "You've been holding this in for years. You've always been bitter." She was shaking now, her voice cracking. We've already lost one son to this mess. Don't let it destroy you too. I blinked. You lost a son. He's in jail. Not dead. Dad stepped closer. You want to be part of this family, you step up. You prove it. My heart pounded. By paying to clean up his crimes, he didn't flinch. By doing what family does. There it was. The quiet demand beneath every guilt trip, every forced smile, every unanswered call. I turned toward the elevator. If you don't leave, I said quietly, I'll call the police. My mother gasped. You'd do that to your own parents. You already did worse, I said. At that moment, the building manager stepped into view. Everything okay here, he asked, voice polite but firm. Yes, I said, not taking my eyes off them. They were just leaving. My father's jaw clenched. My mother gave one last wounded look. You'll regret this, she said. When everything falls apart, you'll see. I already did, I said. They left. Finally. And I stood in the lobby for a long time, hand trembling on the crutched chest, rising and falling with effort. I had survived the car crash, but I wasn't sure if I'd survive them, not unless I fought back. The newscast didn't wake me. The ache in my ribs did. It was still dark outside, just the pale suggestion of morning behind the blinds when I rolled over too far in bed and pain lit up my side like a flare. I groaned, reaching for the bottle of pills beside the bed, and that's when I noticed the TV was on. Langston Bellamy, previously awarded the Civic Integrity Honor in 2023, is now at the center of an expanding federal investigation into alleged money laundering and wire fraud totaling over $9 million. Authorities say the scheme may involve multiple executives across several shell companies. My hand froze. The screen showed footage of Langston in a tuxedo smiling beside a mayor. Then it cut to grainy stills of office buildings, wireframes of account flows maps with red lines. And just like that, whatever hope I had that this would blow over quietly snapped in half. I grabbed my phone. It buzzed before I even touched it. 3 new texts, 2 missed calls, a voicemail, all from people I hadn't spoken to in months. One text read, "Dude, your brother's on the news." Another, "Tell me it's not true. Weren't you just in the hospital?" And then, "Sorry to hear about Langston. Heard your parents are saying he's being framed. Hang in there." My stomach dropped. I switched to Twitter. His name was trending. By the time I forced myself up, the articles were multiplying by the hour. What had started as accounting irregularities had ballooned into a full-blown federal case. The money had been moving for over a year. Several dummy accounts, cross-border wires. There was even talk of conspiracy, ongoing investigation into whether Bellamy was a key player or a fall guy. Fall guy. I laughed, bitter, hollow. Langston hadn't fallen into anything. He'd climbed the ladder rung by forged rung. I tried to eat something but couldn't. I left my eggs untouched and stared at them for too long. Then the phone rang again. Dad. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again, Mom. Then both alternating. By the 6th call, I answered. Huxley, my father said immediately, voice taut. This is not what it looks like. Then what is it, I asked, flat. A misunderstanding. Langston is being dragged into something he didn't orchestrate. The real criminals are using him as a scapegoat. My head throbbed. And that explains the shell accounts in his name. They set him up, he insisted. We just need to get ahead of this. Show a united front. There it was. And how do you suggest we do that? You've got the resources, he said without a beat. If we can post bail, hire the right PR, get him proper counsel. No, I said. Don't even finish. Son, Mom cut in when had she joined the call. We are hanging by a thread. The firm is already losing clients. People are talking. You can stop this. You could fix it, Huxley. I swallowed bile. You didn't even come to the hospital. That's not fair, she snapped. This family is under siege. We couldn't be in 2 places at once. You chose. A beat of silence. I'm not your ATM. I'm not your second chance to clean up his mess. Dad's voice hardened. Don't make this about old wounds. Old wounds, I laughed. You ignored my emergency. Now you want me to empty my savings for a white-collar criminal who probably thought he'd get away with it. Mom's voice cracked. He's your brother. Was he mine when he was taking credit for my ideas? When he copied my college application essay word for word, and you told me to let it go because he was under pressure? Dead silence. Then Dad again. You're bitter. No, I said. I'm just done. The next few days blurred. I still went to rehab barely. The physical pain was bearable, the mental weight, not so much. Every time my foot hit the mat or I raised a resistance band, my phone vibrated with another attempt to guilt me. Every message was the same. If I didn't help, I was condemning the family, that I was their last hope, that they'd make things right if I just said yes. One afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I messaged Marlon. Need to talk. Urgent. We met at a coffee shop near his office. He looked tired, but alert, his lawyer mode on. This thing is huge, he said, laptop open to 3 tabs of news reports and SEC filings. It's not just Langston. There's a paper trail involving 4 other executives, but he signed off on the transfers, multiple times. He's not innocent. He emailed me, I said quietly, asked me to help. Marlon raised an eyebrow. Did he offer anything besides guilt? No. Just said I'm the only one who can save the family. Marlon scoffed. They don't want you to save the family. They want you to pay to keep it from collapsing. I nodded, eyes on the table. He leaned forward. You owe them nothing. Back home that night, I sat with that thought. Let it steep. And just when I felt clarity returning, the phone buzzed again. A new email. From Langston. Subject line. I need you to hear this. I stared at the screen for a long time before opening it. The tone was different from every text, every news article, every word Dad had spat into the phone. Langston's voice, usually polished, inflated with ego, was subdued. Hux, I know you're angry. You should be. I should have been there for you. We all should have. But I didn't know how far this thing had gone until it was too late. I scanned for the lie, the bait. But he didn't start with blame. He didn't even start with denial. I'm not going to pretend I'm innocent. I signed things I shouldn't have. I took money I thought I deserved. But I didn't orchestrate the scheme. That was above me, 3 executives' names you'd recognize. I was the shiny young face they used to sell the legitimacy. Now, I'm the scapegoat. I paused. The words hit differently coming from him. From anyone else, it would sound like a cop-out. But Langston never admitted fault. Ever. Then came the twist. I know what Mom and Dad are doing. I know how they treat you. They only call when they need something. I saw it growing up. I was the golden child, but I always knew you were the smarter one, the stronger one. You shouldn't have to pay for this. But if you don't, they'll sink. I set the laptop down. He was using my pain, my lifelong inferiority, my need to be seen. I wanted to believe him. I called Marlon. You're not going to believe what he just said. We met the next day. I brought the email. Marlon read it twice, then leaned back in his chair. He's trying a different kind of manipulation, he said. Not denial, not anger, empathy. It's clever. I want to know if any of it's true. So we dug. For hours, I scoured filings, public records, leaked memos, court logs. Marlon walked me through how to read disclosures, how to find buried leads. And yes, some of it lined up. The main accounts were created months before Langston joined that division. Several high-ranking execs had quietly resigned weeks before the indictment. Internal audits were missing from quarterly statements. A whistleblower's name had been redacted in one memo. But Langston had still signed the paperwork. He'd benefited. He'd lied. Truth wasn't binary. It was a minefield. I tried one last thing. I messaged my parents. There's a chance Langston isn't the mastermind. Might be bigger fish. Their response came within minutes. Mom, all the more reason you should help. He's a victim. We need to protect him. Dad, this is your chance to fix everything. Don't be selfish. No joy. No relief that there might be justice. Just pressure. Again. I put down the phone. And I knew with finality that they didn't want truth. They wanted silence. A clean face to present to the world. I wasn't going to give them that. Later that night, my cousin Valerie messaged me. "Hey, just wanted you to know your parents are calling around, saying you're hiding money, that you're bitter. Some of the family's starting to talk." I didn't reply right away. Instead, I stared out the window at the Pittsburgh skyline lights flickering like the last embers of something dying. They were rewriting the story, recasting me as the villain, and this time I wasn't going to let them. The first thing I noticed was the number of missed calls, 28. All from numbers I didn't recognize, some with local area codes, some not. The texts started pouring in shortly after. A few just said, "Call me." Others were more direct. "How could you do that to your own family? Your brother's rotting, and you're sitting on a pile of money. I didn't raise you to be this cold." At first, I thought maybe it was a scam. Someone got my number, spread it online. But then I saw a familiar name, Cousin Derek. We hadn't spoken in 3 years, maybe more. His message was just 6 words. "You should know what they're saying." I didn't reply right away. I just stared at the message as I sat in my dim living room, the ache in my hip flaring a crutch, leaning against the coffee table pill bottles lined up in a tray. I'd been so focused on healing my body I hadn't realized someone was out there quietly bleeding my name. I finally replied to Derek. "What are they saying?" His response was almost instant. Screenshot after screenshot. My mother's voice in a group voicemail. My father's comments under an old family photo. The message was clear: I had abandoned them. I had refused to help bail out my brother even though I had the money. I was holding a grudge and punishing the family. And worst of all, according to them, they never left me alone in that hospital. I was the one rewriting history. I remember that moment as clearly as the car crash. The pit in my stomach wasn't just anger, it was betrayal all over again. They weren't just trying to get money anymore. They were trying to destroy me publicly, so I'd have no choice but to fold. I was mid-step during a rehab session when I got another voicemail. The therapist had just told me to focus on my balance to feel my weight shift evenly. But the voicemail blared in my pocket and I instinctively grabbed the phone. Another relative, her voice high and cutting. "It's Thanksgiving and your mom's in tears. You're acting like you were orphaned. Stop being dramatic." I paused in the middle of the walking bars, one foot barely ahead of the other. My body was learning to stand again. My dignity was being dragged face down in the mud. That night I sat down at my laptop. I pulled up my hospital records, the text I sent Dad 4 days after the crash, the logs of missed calls. I opened a spreadsheet and started a timeline. Date of accident, date of discharge, date of their ambush at my building. I didn't know yet if I'd need it for court, but I needed to reclaim the truth, if only for myself. 2 days later, an unexpected message popped up. Aunt Rose. Technically, a second cousin. We'd spoken maybe once at a wedding. Her message was short. "Don't let them get in your head. I know what they're like." Then another came. "Uncle Wade. They did the same thing to me years ago, just louder now." And suddenly stories started flooding in, ones I'd never heard, or maybe ones I'd heard and dismissed as family gossip. There was the time my brother borrowed $30,000 from Uncle Ray to start a business venture. When it failed, my parents told everyone Ray was greedy, trying to sabotage their golden boy. There was a birthday party where my brother got blackout drunk and destroyed the backyard. My parents told everyone it was an accident caused by the neighbor's kid. And then there was the cousin who'd tried to go into business with my brother but was cut out at the last minute. My dad had said she wasn't sterling enough for their name. I remembered the silence that followed, the way she stopped showing up at holidays. Each story painted a pattern I couldn't ignore. This wasn't a one-time betrayal. This was a career of it. My parents had always chosen pride over people, reputation over relationship, control over care. And now I understood why they needed me so badly. They had burned every other bridge. I wasn't just their son. I was their last option. I forwarded everything to Marlon, my lawyer friend. He called me back within the hour. "Don't engage publicly," he warned. "No posts, no statements, just collect, document. If it escalates, we've got options. Harassment laws, building security protocols. But stay clean." I hung up and stared at the ceiling. I'd always wondered if I was overreacting, if maybe I was the one seeing things too sharply. But this wasn't projection. It was a strategy. They weren't acting out of emotion, they were waging a campaign. I wasn't a person to them. I was a bank account with legs, and now those legs were weak, so they thought I'd fall into line. But I wasn't falling. Not this time. The update came quietly via an email alert linked to the public record system. My brother had accepted a plea deal. He'd agreed to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence, 12 months probation, community service, no jail time. In return, he would provide names, methods, bank trails. Suddenly, he wasn't just a disgraced golden boy. He was a thread unraveling a much bigger knot. It wasn't justice, but it was accountability. And for once, it didn't come from me. That same day, my phone buzzed with one last message from my mother. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't concern. It was venom. I hope you're proud. You turned your back on your family and now you get to watch it all fall apart. You always wanted to be separate. Well, congratulations. No. Are you okay? No, we were wrong. Just the bitter residue of a plan that didn't work. I didn't reply. I just stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Later, I heard through Wade that my parents had finally scraped together enough money for bail. Not through savings, not by selling a second home. No, they'd gone back to the very people they once cast out, borrowing from relatives they'd insulted, begging favors from old colleagues they'd frozen out. They'd traded pride for access. And in doing so, they completed the cycle they'd always inflicted on others. My parents didn't bend for love. They bent for necessity. And even now, they didn't bend toward me. I sat with Marlon in his office, a stack of papers between us. I want to end this, I told him. Not the drama. The access. The open windows they think they still have into my life. We went down the list, removed my parents as emergency contacts on all medical and employment records, sent formal notice to my building's management, no access granted to them under any circumstances. Drafted a letter from Marlon's office warning that any further contact or defamation would be considered harassment with intent to pursue legal consequences. Changed passwords. Closed joint accounts I hadn't thought about in years. Locked my credit. Updated my will. By the end of the week, I'd sealed every crack. They would have to knock now, and even then, I didn't have to answer. The following Sunday, I had dinner with Aunt Rose and two cousins I barely knew. It was just lasagna and garlic bread in a modest house, nothing fancy. But halfway through, one of them touched my arm gently and said, "You know you don't have to pay for love here. We just like you." I almost cried into my plate. I'd been living my whole life like I had to earn affection, perform for it, prove I deserved it. That accident didn't just crack my ribs, it cracked the lie I'd been living under. My parents didn't fail me because they were weak. They failed me because I no longer served their narrative. The moment I stopped playing my role, I became disposable. That's not family. That's theater. So I stepped off their stage. I got back to physical therapy with a new fire in my chest. I stopped looking over my shoulder when I walked to the mailbox. I applied for a new job in a city I'd always wanted to live in. And for the first time in a long time, I started imagining a future that didn't include anyone I had to explain myself to. No letters, no calls. No more waiting for something tender to come from people who only knew how to sharpen what was already broken. I wasn't refusing to forgive. I was choosing not to rent space in my life to people who'd proven they couldn't be trusted with even a key. There's a quiet that comes after you stop begging to be understood. And in that quiet, I finally heard myself. They say silence can be deafening, but for me it was finally clean. There were no more calls to brace for. No more texts loaded with guilt. No more rehearsing comebacks in the shower or lying awake at night wondering if I had done enough, been enough for people who only loved me when I was useful. That noise was gone now. And in the stillness, I realized something I wish I'd known years ago. You don't have to earn love. You don't have to bleed for it. Real love doesn't bargain or barter. It doesn't show up only when it's convenient or profitable. I used to think family meant automatic belonging, a built-in safety net no matter what. But the truth is, family isn't built on shared DNA. It's built on shared dignity, mutual care, The kind of loyalty that doesn't evaporate the moment you say no. And saying no, that was the hardest part. It felt unnatural at first, like learning how to walk again on broken legs. But each time I said it, each time I held that boundary firm, I was laying the foundation for something sturdier. Something mine. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about punishing anyone. It was about choosing a life that didn't require me to shrink or sacrifice myself to make others feel powerful. About deciding that peace wasn't just something other people got to have, it was something I was allowed to protect too. There are days I still grieve. I won't lie. Grieve the fantasy of what my parents could have been. Grieve the version of my brother I wish existed, the one who would have said I'm sorry and meant it. But grief, when you let it breathe, becomes a quieter thing. It loses its sharp edges. It turns into space. And in that space, new things have started to grow. Like dinners with people who ask nothing of me but my presence. Like mornings where I don't wake up bracing for conflict. Like the slow rebuilding of a self I didn't know I'd been hiding, one that doesn't flinch at the sound of my phone ringing. This story wasn't just about betrayal, it was about clarity. It was about the moment I realized that love without respect isn't love, it's leverage. And the courage it takes to stop mistaking one for the other. So if you've been where I've been, if you've been guilted into silence or made to feel like love should cost your peace, I hope this story helps you draw your own line in the sand. Not out of anger, but out of truth. Because sometimes the bravest thing we can do is walk away, not to hurt them, but to finally heal ourselves. And if you've made it this far, maybe you're ready to choose that kind of freedom too. The kind where you belong to yourself first. The kind where love isn't a transaction, but a sanctuary. Thanks for walking through this with me. If this resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And wherever you are, may your peace be loud. Some stories remind us how heavy love can get when it's tied to expectation, when silence becomes the price we pay just to keep the peace. But walking away isn't always about giving up. It can be the first quiet act of self-respect. And maybe for some of us, it's the only way to learn that protecting our own peace doesn't make us selfish. It means we've grown. We don't get to choose where we're born, but at some point we all have to choose where we truly belong. Sometimes family is made of those who come to us not because they want something, but because they genuinely want us there. And kindness often begins with simply being seen and trusted without conditions. If this story stirred something in you, maybe a memory or a moment you thought only you had lived, feel free to leave a few words below. Just know you're not alone in this. And if you'd like to be part of a space where stories like this find a home, where we listen without judgment, you're always welcome here. Subscribe if that feels right. We'll meet again soon in another story, another voice. Until then, may your heart stay soft and your steps stay steady.